These are all the players over 20% ownership who I'm fading in AFL Fantasy 2025, plus a few others. Let's get into it. First up, I have Jagger Smith, who of course just suffered the ACL injury, which is a real shame because I think he would have been a great pick. Over 50% of coaches still own him, but they will have to jump off now because we can't be starting him anymore. Probably the biggest player who I'm fading is Harry Sheezel. I think he's an interesting one, but I don't like what it does to my structure when I have him in my team. I don't think there's value here, and he is very expensive. I feel like it's a pick that people are making because they don't know who else to get. I'm okay with starting someone like Zeri because there aren't really those other options there, but I think in the back line there's enough. If you really look at it, Sheezel is a great player, don't get me wrong, but I'm not so sure he's a great pick. If I fade him, that allows me to have a few $100,000 to use elsewhere, which makes my team a lot stronger, in my opinion. Jason Horne-Francis is one who I was going to be fading, but he has now come into my team for the first time in a long while. So, we'll move on to Saad El-Hali. He was popular early on this preseason, but we haven't seen good signs from him, and I think there are better options out there. There's a good chance he won't even be in the Bombers side. Another Bomber is Zach Reed, who probably will be in the team, but he's a key defender, and we won't be seeing any impressive scoring out of him. A third rookie here is Sam Lalor, who recently suffered a jaw injury, I think it was, in the match sims. I didn't have Lalor before anyway, but there is still 28% of coaches who need to jump off him now. Finally, another premium, we have Will Day, who is someone I am considering at least. I really don't want to start many people on the early buys if I don't have to, and there are definitely still good options available without starting Day. With that said, I do think there could be 20 to 25 points of upside here, and he could be a winning pick to start the season. It really depends what he scores in opening round, but for now, I'd rather go with an alternative option, like an Adam Chera. At 27% ownership is Nick Daicos, who is shaping up to be a very interesting option this preseason. Just before I get to him, please subscribe to the channel if you are enjoying the video at any point. We just got to 500 subscribers, which is great, and now we are trying to grow the community to 1,000, which would be awesome. You can also check out the new Instagram, which is where you guys voted for this video. So to have your say, head over there at the Tactical Sub. I didn't get to watch the game, but from what I hear in the match sim, he was outstanding. And I've heard a lot of coaches who know what they're talking about, saying that Daicos could average 115 this year, which is very exciting. The reason why I'm not picking him is of course because he has the early bye. In fact, it's the round 3 bye, which is definitely the worst one for him to be on. I just don't think we can spend $1 million on a player who's only going to play twice in the first 3 rounds. I've though about starting like a Will Day and then trading him in round 4 to a Daicos who will be coming off his bye. However, I don't like the idea of locking trades in this early, so for now, I have neither. I also don't have Finn O'Sullivan, who is owned by 26% of coaches. I don't doubt his job security at all. However, I do doubt his scoring ability and role. In the Coates Talent League, he only averaged 75, and in the recent match sim, he didn't score well at all. He is playing a mix of half forward and wing role, which we know isn't great for fantasy scoring. Even North Melbourne has said that he is there as an impact player, not to accumulate like Harry Sheezel did in his first year. Maybe there is a bit of a rookie shortage, but I still think there's enough options for you to pass on Finn. One who was in my team for a fair while, there was Tom de Koning, but he's out now. From the match sims, we got fairly good proof that Mark Pittonet is going to be hanging around again this season. In fact, he won't just be there every now and again. It seemed as though he had a 50% split, which is not good news at all for fantasy coaches. Add in the fact that both of them have discussed how they will share the role, and de Koning is someone I now don't want to go anywhere near. Josh Smillie is another midfield rookie who I won't be starting. He suffered a minor hamstring tear earlier this year, which he has mostly recovered from, but I just don't think his scoring will be good enough. He averaged 20 points better than O'Sullivan, but he's at Richmond, and I find it very unlikely that he averages over 55, maybe even 50. There are better options, like Harvey Langford, who are stepping up instead. We may own his brother, but Will Ashcroft is someone that I wouldn't recommend starting. He's currently owned by around 21% of all coaches, but with that early buy, I don't see any way in which we could be starting him. There probably is a bit of value there, and he did play great in the grand final, but the other options around his price present better value and don't have a buy. It's tricky enough navigating the round 3 buy in the backline, and we shouldn't be adding in another one here. The general consensus is that he didn't look great in the match sims either. I'll be pretty clear here. Don't pick him. Although, yes, of course, it is up to you. A lot of these players are ones who are injured, and Kitty Coleman is no exception. He had the ACL injury a while back, yet he remains in 20% of teams. I'm not sure what status he's at now. There was talk that he might be back for round 1, but even so, I don't think anyone should be starting him before we see him play a decent amount of footy. Plus, there are plenty of good mid-priced options to jump on around his price in the backline. Marcus Bontempelli is one I'm quite surprised is hovering up there in the ownership. 1 in 5 coaches have him, which is a lot considering I haven't thought about him as an option once. I feel like I'm missing something because I don't understand why so many people have him. He's priced at 107, so maybe there is a world where he averages over 110 again, but as someone who's owned him the last few years, it's not one of those picks I've enjoyed. There are plenty of players I would pick ahead of the Bont, like a Brayshaw, Dawson, and even a Jack Steele, so personally, not a pick I would recommend. But feel free to let me know if there is something I'm missing. I know I said over 20%, but there's still about 6 other players I want to discuss. First up is Colby McKercher, who I was hot on about a month back, but it's fair to say I've gone off him now. I think he's a good enough player to average near triple figures, but I'm not a fan of his role at all. It's very similar to O'Sullivan's. Outside ball, which should in theory be good, but on the wing and halfback, I don't see him averaging much more than 90, and with players like Short and Rivers around that price point, he's just not a great pick. At 14% is Rowan Marshall, who also had the injury. I'm pretty sure that Marshall is going to be back in time for round 1 against Adelaide, but paying $1.2 million for someone who's just come off a stress fracture is a huge and unnecessarily risky move to make. That's all I have to say about him. Flanders and Wyfield I'm going to group together here. They both had phenomenal seasons last year, but I don't see them replicating those scores, and I think they might even go down a bit. I've already mentioned a fair bit that there are plenty of other great options, especially ones who present value, and Flanders and Whitfield do not fit these criteria at all. If you really want to pay up for someone, it's Sheezel, not one of these guys. Second to last is Jack Sinclair sitting at 12% owned. He also suffered a bit of a hamstring injury and, like Marshall, is racing to be available in time for round 1. With the injury, we can't start him, and honestly, I would have said to not start him anyway, because I don't see any value here. Wanganeen Milera is the perfect alternative. The final player I want to talk about is Max Holmes, who, yes, I don't have, but I think we are sleeping on him a bit. With that said, he is still owned by 12% of the competition. Priced at 95, he should be getting bulk centre bounces this year, and I would think he will push over the 100 mark this year. There's one big issue though. Like so many other defenders, he has the round 3 bye, which means for me, we can't start him. For anyone still watching, here is something important. I believe we can have a maximum of 2 round 3 defenders, and I would order them as Mills. If he plays, Perryman, Sam De Koning, Roberts, and then finally Holmes, purely because of his price.